Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a topic that, well, it affects pretty much everyone, stress. And our guide for this exploration is Ajahn Brahm. We're looking at his talk, How to Not Have Any Stress, from back in May 2017.
Right. We've got the transcript. And the goal is really to unpack his insights, drawing from his own experiences and what he's observed.
Yeah, definitely. And if you, the listener, have ever felt just crushed by pressure, or maybe you think your stress is all down to like external stuff,
This could be really game-changing. Ajahn Brahm's view offers a different angle, doesn't it?
it really does.
Yeah.
He basically suggests the key isn't changing your circumstances, but changing your attitude towards them.
Which sounds simple, but think about his life.
Yeah.
Senior monk, spiritual advisor, loads of travel, big responsibilities.
Exactly. You'd think he'd be incredibly stressed out.
But he insists he experiences very little stress. His core point is it's not the work itself, it's how you think about the work, how you approach it.
And he kicks off with a kind of a funny anecdote, doesn't he, about a letter to the editor.
Yeah, about Buddhism's perceived kindness, suggesting maybe Buddhists don't complain enough. It's a light way into this idea that, well, maybe acceptance and less reactivity do lead to less stress.
It makes you think, how much stress do we create just by resisting what's happening?
Exactly, that resistance.
Okay, so let's dig in a bit. He brings up some research to back this up, right?
Yeah.
A TED Talk.
By a psychologist who studied CEOs. High-pressure jobs, The question was why some developed heart problems and others didn't.
And you'd assume it's workload, maybe genetics, something like
That's
that.
the logical assumption, yeah. But the study found something else was the deciding factor.
Which was?
It was their attitude. Simple as that. Not the hours, not their genes. Attitude.
Wow. So what kind of attitudes make the difference?
Well, the CEOs who had this negative internal narrative, the why me or this isn't fair mindset, they were far more likely to get sick. High cholesterol, heart issues, the works.
Okay. And the others?
The ones who saw the demands as like a challenge, something they could tackle, maybe even something positive. They stayed healthier, even under similar pressure.
That really hammers home his point, doesn't it? Our internal chatter directly impacts our physical health and stress.
Absolutely. It makes you reflect on your own reactions when things get tough.
It really does. Then he shifts gears, brings in a very personal story, the wheelbarrow one.
Ah, yes, the wheelbarrow story. So vivid. From his time as a young monk under Ajahn Chah.
He describes this incredibly hard labor, right? Moving earth for days.
3 days straight. Hard work, bad food, tough conditions. And just when they thought they were done.
The deputy monk tells them to move it all back.
Exactly. Another 3 days of grinding work. And then, believe it or not, Ajahn Chah himself comes along and tells them, move it again, a third time.
And that was the breaking point for Ajahn Brahm.
That's when he says the anger and stress just boiled over. You can imagine, right? The feeling of pointlessness, the lack of control.
Utterly frustrating. But then another monk offers some perspective.
Yeah, a Thai monk just says to him, very simply, pushing the wheelbarrow is easy. Thinking about it is the hard part.
Wow. Simple, but deep.
Isn't it? It cuts right to the core. The mental baggage we add, the complaining, the this is awful, the that's what makes it unbearable, not the physical act itself.
The stress isn't in the task, it's in the fighting against the task mentally.
Precisely. And he mentioned something else, too, about how they eventually dealt with it.
Right, they started making it fun.
Yeah. Having races, messing about, which leads perfectly into his next point, the importance of finding enjoyment. Injecting fun into whatever you have to do.
Even if it seems tedious or difficult.
Especially then, perhaps. It's about shifting your attitude not just to acceptance, but actively looking for the positive, the lighter side.
He gives examples from his own life,
Yeah.
right? Jokes in the monastery, using humor as a teacher.
He really believes this playful attitude is key to keeping stress at bay.
He even tells that joke about the archbishop and the pope playing golf.
Yeah, a bit cheeky, but it makes the point. Laughter itself is a stress release. It helps us not take everything so deadly seriously.
Which connects to another big stressor, trying to please everyone, worrying what others think.
Oh, definitely. That's a huge source of anxiety for so many people. Ajahn Brahm talks about consciously letting go of that need for approval.
How so? What examples does he give?
Well, like wearing his monk's robes in public without worrying about stares or comments, or his funny interactions in the hospital, and that story about being teased on the highway.
Leech Highway, yeah. And he was just completely unfazed.
Totally. The point is, you stop letting other people's opinions dictate your happiness, your inner state.
So essentially, reclaiming your emotional independence.
Exactly. Think how much energy we waste worrying about external validation.
Right.
Letting that go is, well, it's freeing, massively reduces stress.
Okay, another big one. The fear of making mistakes. That causes a lot of stress.
It really does. And Ajahn Brahm flips that on its head. He argues that allowing for mistakes, embracing imperfection, actually reduces stress.
How does he illustrate that? He shares some personal stories.
Oh, absolutely. Hilarious self-deprecating stories like
Yeah.
misidentifying someone at a funeral.
Or mistaking the groom for the bride's father at a wedding.
Right. And even simpler things like looking for his glasses when they're on his head. We've all done stuff like that.
True. It normalizes it.
It does. And his point is, laugh about it. Laugh with others when things go wrong instead of hiding or feeling ashamed. It diffuses the whole situation.
He even tells stories about others' reactions, like the widow's comment when the heavy coffin got stuck.
Yes. And Dennis, the marriage celebrant, forgetting the rings, it's about cultivating a culture where mistakes aren't catastrophes, just human moments, often funny ones.
So the fear of the mistake is worse than the mistake itself, usually.
Often, yes. The anxiety we build up around it is the real stressor.
What about bigger anxieties? Things like climate change, the economy, things that feel outside our control.
He addresses those too. Again, it's about perspective and often humor.
Humor about climate change. How does that work?
Well, he jokes about his monastery potentially becoming beachfront property with rising sea levels, or their rent-a-monk service doing well in a tough economy.
Okay, I see. It's not denying the problems.
Not at all. It's about choosing not to let the anxiety about them dominate your present moment, your inner peace, acknowledging the issue without being consumed by fear, reframing it.
That makes sense. And then he kind of brings it all together by talking about the mind itself.
Right, this is foundational. He uses that lovely analogy of the child saying their eye is the biggest thing in the world because it can see everything.
And then he expands on that.
Yes, saying the mind is even bigger. It can conceive of things the eye can't see, experience universes within itself. It's vast.
So the implication is?
The world fits into our mind, not the other way around. Our experience of the world is filtered through the mind. Therefore, cultivating a peaceful, positive mind is the most direct way to a happier, less stressful experience of the world.
It puts the power back in our hands, doesn't it? Or in our minds.
Exactly. Managing the internal landscape changes how we experience the external one.
He also took questions from the audience, which is always helpful for practical application.
Definitely. People asked about things like, making mistakes that affect others.
What was his take on that?
Basically, that allowing mistakes actually leads to fewer mistakes in the long run because people learn faster without fear, and addressing the body's stress response.
Yeah, like when your mind knows something isn't a big deal, but your body still reacts.
Right. He suggested mindfulness, visualization, learning to consciously relax the body, and dealing with nightmares.
Through meditation.
Well, more like programming the mind with positive intentions before sleep, and balancing change with letting go.
How did he approach that?
Adapting, living in the present, not getting stuck on how things used to be. It all circles back to that mental flexibility and acceptance. Oh, and he jokingly advised finding someone else to blame for mistakes.
Huh. While taking credit for the praise, of course.
Naturally. Always good to end with a bit of humor.
So if we boil it all down, what's the absolute core message from this deep dive into Ajahn Brahm's talk?
I think it's that stress is largely an inside job. It's generated by our attitudes, our resistance, our fears, especially fear of mistakes, and our worries about things outside our immediate control, including what others think.
Our internal world shapes our stress levels more than the external world does.
That seems to be his central argument. And the way forward
is actively working on that inner world, right?
Yeah.
Shifting perspective, finding humor, embracing imperfection, staying present.
Cultivating that positive, peaceful mind. He suggests that's where the real power lies to reduce stress, regardless of what's happening around us.
It's a really empowering thought. So maybe the final thing to consider is this. If your mind really does contain and shape your entire experience of the world.
What power does that give you?
Right. What power do you actually have to change your experience just by cultivating inner peace, a different outlook? What one small shift in attitude could you make, maybe even today, that might significantly lighten your stress load?
It's definitely something worth reflecting on. A powerful idea.
Indeed. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.